So at the end of last year, as a part of my series where I was designing my Christmas presents, I ended up creating what I would call a butchie boy, but, you know, according to the comments, these are known as many different things depending on your geographical location, really. But I think the most overwhelming response I got was Roly Poly. So just for the duration of this video, I'm going to do my best to refer to it as a Roly Poly. Majority rules. And after that video went up, many of you reached out and asked me for the pattern for this guide. So that's what I'm going to provide today. Tilly, you have really bad timing. Can we be quiet for 5 minutes? So if you'd like to make your own Roly Poly bug, grab your hooks and let's get started. In order to make this Roly Poly pattern, you're going to need 8-ply yarn in 2 colors, which I'll be referring to as main color and color A, as well as a pair of scissors, a needle, some pins, some stitch markers, a pair of 18mm safety eyes, a little bit of stuffing, and lastly a 4mm hook. So the first pieces that we're going to make are what I'm calling the base pieces, and these are these semicircle looking pieces in here, to which we crochet both the plate sections later and also the belly / bottom section here. So they're kind of important and we must crochet them first. So to do that, you're going to need your 4mm hook as well as your main color yarn, whatever color that happens to be for you. And then we're going to start off with a magic circle, and in the magic circle work 6 single crochet. And 6. Now with this pattern, we are starting off with a magic circle, but we're not going to be working in continuous rounds. Instead, we'll work in rows. To do that, we're going to chain 1, turn our work, and starting in the second stitch from the hook, which means we're skipping the chain 1 that we just made, we're going to work 1 single crochet, and then in the next stitch an increase. And we're going to repeat this 3 times in total. So in the next stitch, we'll do another single crochet. In the stitch after that, a second increase, 1 and 2 in the same stitch. And at this point, we should have 2 stitches left. In them, we're going to do 1 more single crochet and then an increase to finish us off. For row 2, we also begin with a chain 1 and turn our work. This time we're going to do 2 single crochet, 1 increase, repeated 3 times. So that is 1 and then 2 single crochet, increase in the third stitch, and then repeat that pattern twice more. And then we just want to continue increasing by 3 every row until we hit row 7. So for row 4, that means we're going to chain 1, turn our work, and this time we're going to do 3 single crochet and an increase repeated 3 times. Then row 5 is chain 1, turn work, and 4 single crochet, 1 increase repeated 3 times. And then row 6, chain 1, turn your work, and this time do 5 single crochet, 1 increase repeated 3 times. And then for our final row, which is row 7, we're again going to chain 1, turn our work, and this time do 6 single crochet, 1 increase 3 times. increase, and once you've done that final increase, you're going to cut a short yarn tail. We're not going to be sewing with this end. It just needs to be long enough that you can weave it in. Speaking of which, pull up with your hook to finish off, and then we're going to weave both of these ends in through the backs of our stitches to both hide them and secure them. So if you look at your piece from front on, you should be able to see the V's of your stitches from that final row, row 7 that we just crocheted. So if I flip this over, you can see that they're hidden now. We can't see that distinctive V shape. This is the back of our piece. So we want to make sure that we weave in our ends through these stitches here. So we're going to thread our needle. And I just want to pass my needle through the backs of any stitches. It doesn't really matter where you work them exactly. But you just want to make sure when you flip your piece back over to the right side that you can't see your needle through the front. So if you can, you just have to pull it out and reinsert it, because we don't want these yarn ends really sticking through. Although that's kind of just a precaution, because in this pattern, like, it will be mostly hidden in the fold anyway. So if you make a tiny little mistake, it doesn't matter that much. So just weave both of those in. And then once you're finished, you will need to go ahead and make yourself at least 9 more of those pieces. So for this particular Roly Poly, you know, this little guy here, hello, I am making 10 base pieces, but if you'd like to make a Roly Poly that's a little bit larger, you can increase the amount of pieces that you make, but you do need to make an even amount, because the next step in this process will be to pair these together. So you can make 12, 14, etc., etc. As long as you make an even amount of pieces, you should be good. So now we can continue on with the next part, which is joining all of our base pieces. So to do so, you will need to single out 2, any 2, it doesn't really matter. And then we're going to stack them on top of each other with the right sides facing up. Now, as we discussed just a few seconds ago, the right side of our piece is the one in which you can clearly see the V of the stitches from the final round. So you're going to place one on top of the other with both of the right sides facing up. Then you're going to need to bring in your color A yarn. So for me, that is this lighter purple, because this is the color in which we'll be crocheting the belly or the bottom of the piece. So to join these base pieces, we're going to be crocheting right across the bottom here, but also working into the first and last stitch from our final round. So that would be this stitch on the side here, this one here, as well as this one here and this one here. All up, we should be crocheting 15 stitches across this piece. The first of which we're going to be crocheting here into the last stitch of our final row, row 7. So to do that, you want to insert your hook into that final stitch. If you're not really sure which stitch I'm talking about, just count from the first one to the last one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So that is stitch 24, our final stitch. This is where you want to insert your hook. So we're going to insert it there. And then we're going to insert our hook directly into the last stitch of the next piece too. So you want to insert it into stitch 24 there. So we've worked through both of our base pieces. They're both facing right side up, and we worked into stitch 24 of each. At this point, bring in your color A yarn, and we're just going to join that with a slip stitch. So line your yarn up behind your pieces. You're going to yarn over, pull through both stitches. I apologize for the ferret noises in the background. We're going to pull through both stitches. Then you're going to yarn over again and pull through to do a slip stitch. This slip stitch does not count as a stitch in the row. So we're going to work our very first single crochet back into this same stitch space. Reinsert your hook back into stitch 24 from both pieces. So I'm going to go through the first base piece. So I've only worked through one. I'm going to go through the second one. And then I'm just going to single crochet, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, and finish your first single crochet. Then for the next few stitches, we need to work across the bottom of the piece, working into the space between the ends of the rows. So here is row 7, here is row 6. We're going to be working into the space in between them right here. So if I insert my hook into that space in the first base piece, I'm going to insert my hook into the space in the next base piece as well. And at the same time, I'm going to be crocheting over this yarn end that I've left just to secure it. If you would prefer, you can leave that alone for now and just weave it in, when you finish crocheting the joining stitches here. So into this space where I've just worked, I'm going to do my second single crochet. Then I'm going to jump down to the space between rows 6 and 5, work through both base pieces, single crochet again. And we're going to continue like this, working into the space between each rows until we hit the magic circle in the center. So I've done my first 7 single crochet. The first was worked into stitch 24 of both pieces on the side here, and the next 6 worked into the space between the rows. So that gives me 7 all up. The next single crochet that I need to work is going to go directly into the magic circle. So you can see my magic circle here. I want to work right into the middle. Once again, I'm going to go through the first base piece, and you might find you'll need to use a bit of force to get your hook through the magic circle. It really depends on how tightly you close it up at the beginning, but just give your hook a bit of a wriggle and it should get through there. So once we've worked through both pieces, we're going to single crochet. Then we're going to do 6 more single crochet, working in the space between the rows right across the bottom of the piece until we reach the end. We are just replicating what we've done here. So I want to do 6 more there. We're going to go 1, 2, and the very last joining single crochet that we need to make is going to be worked into stitch 1 from row 7. So that is this stitch on the side here. So insert your hook into the first base piece, work into the same spot in the second base piece, and then single crochet. And then we'll just finish off. Like with the base pieces themselves, we don't need these yarn ends for sewing, so I would recommend that you weave them in if you haven't worked over them, which I forgot to do even though I was planning on doing so. So we're just going to weave those in through the backs of the stitches. Alright, and there is our first two base pieces joined. We should have 15 single crochet total, 1 in each end of row 7, 6 worked in between the spaces of each row, and then 1 directly in the center of the magic circle. Now that that first piece is done, we need to do the same with all our other base pieces. So I'm going to be doing this 4 more times. If you crocheted more base pieces, you of course will have to do it an additional few times, but just make sure that all your pieces are facing right side up before you begin joining, and then that you do 15 joining single crochet across the bottom. So now with all 5 or more, if you created more, of the base pieces joined together, we're now going to join these together and create the belly piece at the same time. So we'll be doing this one bit at a time, and we're going to alternate between a row of like just crochet and then a joining row where we bring in the next base piece. But don't worry about that right now. We'll start at the beginning. So grab yourself out one of your joined base pieces, and again we want to place it with the right side facing up, and we're also going to put it upside down so that we're looking at our joining stitches that we did in color A. There at the top there. Once you got that in position, we're going to insert our hook into the first color A stitch at the end here. So the first joining stitch that we made, we're going to insert our hook under that, like so. And then we're going to bring in our color A yarn again. Like we did before, we're going to join this yarn with a slip stitch that does not count as a stitch in the row. So slip stitch to join. And then at the start of each of the rows that we're going to do for this belly piece, we're going to chain 4 because this is going to create the legs. So begin by chaining 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then down the chain, we're going to work 1 slip stitch. So starting the second chain from the hook, we're going to put a slip stitch in there. And then 2 more single crochet across the chain. 1 and 2. So those stitches were just worked across the chain that we did. For the remaining stitches in our joining row that we made here, there should be 15, and we're going to single crochet across each of those. So we're going to work into the first one, which is here, where we started our chain. 1, 2, 14, and then my last stitch has got a little bit stretched out because I think I pulled my yarn end too tight, but 15 there. And that is row 1 of the belly. So all up we did a chain 4, then 1 slip stitch followed by 17 single crochet, and that 17 single crochet was broken down into 2 single crochet across the chain and the remaining 15 across the previous joining stitches. So the next row, row 2, is going to be a joining row. We're going to begin that as well by chaining 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're going to repeat the same pattern that we did on the leg here. So that means we're going to put a slip stitch in the second chain from the hook, followed by 2 single crochet. 1, 2, and with that we've crocheted across the chain. The next step is to bring in your second joined base piece, and we're going to line that up behind the first. So we still want to make sure that the right sides of our stitches are facing the same way as the first piece here. So if we line that up behind it, and then I flip it back over, all of the right sides of our stitches are still facing up. So we're just popping that right behind it like this. And then the next 15 single crochet that we need to do will be worked into both this second base piece as well as the first. To do that, insert your hook from behind into the first stitch here of the joining stitches in your second base piece. So right through like that. Then we're going to insert our hook directly into the next stitch of the first base piece. So we should have done those 2 single crochet across the chain. Our third single crochet of that row will go in here. So I've worked through both pieces. Then I'm just going to single crochet them together. So that is my third single crochet of row 2. For the next single crochet, work into the next stitch of your second base piece, then work directly into the second stitch of the first base piece and single crochet those together as well. So in this manner, you're going to work your way all the way down both base pieces, single crocheting them together for 15 stitches in total. And then finally we have 15. So again, the breakdown of row 2 was a chain 4 to begin. Then we did 1 slip stitch followed by 2 more single crochet down that chain. And then we did 15 more single crochet joining our second base piece to our first base piece. Row 3 is just going to be a single crochet row, so we're not going to be joining another base piece. Begin by chaining 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we're going to do a slip stitch followed by 17 single crochet. And like the previous 2 rows, the first 2 single crochet of those 17 are going to be worked across the chain here, and then the final 15 will be worked across the joining stitches here. And 15. That is row 3 finished. Now we're going to go on to row 4, and row 4 is going to be a repeat of row 2, and it is a joining row. So begin by chaining 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Do 1 slip stitch, then 2 single crochet down the chain. 1 and 2. We're going to turn our work and bring in the next base piece, line it up behind the first 2, once again making sure that all the stitches are facing the same way. And we're going to do our final 15 single crochet of row 4, joining the third base piece to the second one. All right, work into the last stitch of the third piece, straight into the next stitch of the second. Single crochet them together, and then just continue joining them for 14 more single crochet. Last one. The next row, row 5, is just a single crochet row, so we're not going to be doing any joining. Start by chaining 4, do 1 slip stitch, and then 17 single crochet, 2 across the chain, and then 15 more across the joining stitches. Row 6 is a joining row, so we want to start with our chain 4 and our slip stitch and 2 single crochet. So slip stitch in the second chain from the hook, then 2 single crochet. And then, like we've done twice previously, we're going to bring in our next piece, line it up with all the stitches facing the same way, and then join it to the pre-existing piece with 15 single crochet. And then the next row, row 7, is not a joining row. Chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then work 1 slip stitch followed by 17 single crochet. And 15. And then if you crocheted 10 base pieces originally, this last row, row 8, should be our final row, and it is a joining one. Begin by chaining 4, 2, 3, and 4. Start off with 1 slip stitch and 2 single crochet. And then just bring in your last base piece and join it together for 15 single crochet. And if I can get my hook in there we go, and 15. So that was the final round for me and for you as well if you made 10 pieces originally. But if you made more, you're going to continue joining, and you will do so in exactly the same manner that we've been doing. So the next row, row 9, or what would be row 9 for you, would be to chain 4, do 1 slip stitch followed by 17 single crochet. So that wouldn't be a joining row. And then the following row would be row 10, where you would again chain 4, do 1 slip stitch, 2 single crochet, and then join your next base piece for 15 single crochet. And if you made even more pieces than that, just continue to repeat that pattern. 1 single crochet round followed by a joining round until you're done. But for the rest of us, we are done at this point. We just need to weave in any yarn ends that we've got. And now the next stage in this process will be to crochet the plates. They are going to be crocheted directly off of our individual base pieces here. But first we want to make sure our little roly poly is in the correct position. And that is with row 1 of the belly that we just made. That is going to be facing forward, so this will be the front. Later on, this is where we're going to place the head. So you want to be looking at it like so, like this, not with the V's of the stitches visible from our last row of joining. That is the back, that is the butt, so that faces away from us. But with that facing towards you, we are then going to insert our hook into the very first stitch of the final row of the individual base piece. Keep in mind that we have already worked into that. We worked our first joining stitch in there. You can sort of see right here where I've already worked into it, that lighter color in the darker stitch. We're just going to insert our hook into exactly the same spot. And for these plates, we are working in just one of the base stitches. We're not working through 2 this time. We're just working through the 1. So only insert your hook through the 1 piece. You can see I haven't worked into the one behind it. Once you've done that, you can bring in your main color yarn. Again, for me, that's this dark purple. We're going to line that up, and we're just going to join it with a slip stitch that once more does not count as a stitch in our round. So slip stitch. Once you've joined your yarn, we're going to start off with row 1, and that begins with 2 single crochet. Remember, the first single crochet is going to be worked into the same stitch where we just made that slip stitch. So I'm going to do 1 single crochet, then another single crochet in stitch 2. We're going to follow this with 3 half double crochet. If you don't know how to crochet a half double crochet, what you want to do is yarn over first. You're going to go into the 3rd stitch, yarn over a second time and pull through. And at this point you should have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over for a final time and pull through all 3 loops. We're going to do that twice more. 1 and then 2. And then following these 3 half double crochet, we're going to do 14 double crochet. To crochet a double crochet, you're going to yarn over first, go into the next stitch, yarn over again and pull through. You should have 3 loops on your hook, but this time, unlike the half double crochet, when we yarn over again, we're only going to pull through the first 2 loops. So pull through 1 and then 2 loops. Now you should have 2 loops on your hook. We're going to yarn over for a final time and pull through both of those loops. That is our first double crochet. We're going to do 13 more for a total of 14. After this 14th double crochet, we're going to do 3 more half double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to finish the row with 2 single crochet. So the first single crochet goes into the next stitch. And then the final single crochet will go into the final stitch of row 7, the last row of our individual base piece that we made, where we've already worked into. So once again, you should be able to see the lighter color or color A yarn in that stitch already, because we have already worked into it when we join the pieces. We're going to put the second single crochet in that same stitch. So, and you can see here I've accidentally worked through both pieces. We don't want to do that, so I'm going to take my hook out and then insert my hook just into the first base piece and a single crochet. So that is row 1 of the plates complete. Rows 2 and 3 are exactly the same pattern, except we're going to begin with a chain 1. So for row 2, you're going to chain 1, you're going to turn your work. In the second chain from the hook, do 2 single crochet, 1 and 2, 3 half double crochet, 2 and 3, followed by 14 double crochet. And 14, then 3 more half double crochet. 2 and 3. And then finish with 2 single crochet, 1 and 2. Then row 3 is the exact same thing. Chain 1, turn your work, then do 2 single crochet, 3 half double crochet, 14 double crochet, 3 half double crochet, and finish again with 2 single crochet. So that is row 3 complete, and technically the first plate is finished as of this point. However, before you finish off, so don't cut your yarn yet, what you can do if you would like is add an additional row or more to the plates if you would like them to be longer. So if I bring in my little guinea pig here, you can see here what sort of length we're looking at when it comes to the plates. So if I curl up my little butchie boy or my Roly Poly, that's how far out these plates extend. And you can see there's some gaps at certain points. If you'd like to make the plates longer, you can add additional rows to this pattern. So just basically repeat rows 2 and 3. So chain 1, follow the pattern back and forth until you're happy with the length of the rows. Once you have reached that point, or if you like the way this looks, you know, stop here where I'm going to. We're going to finish off. And there's 2 ways that we can do this. We can either leave a bit of a longer yarn tail for sewing, because we are going to come back in later and secure the plates at the side here. And to do that, we will need to sew them down. So you can leave a yarn tail for sewing here. And also, while I think of it, at the start, for your remaining plates, you can leave a long yarn tail when you create your slip knot to join the yarn, and that will serve as your sewing yarn on this side. However, the downside to doing that is you're going to end up with a lot of yarn ends, and I can tell you from experience, it's a bit of a pain in the ass. They tend to get in the way a lot. So what you also can do is just cut a short yarn tail, weave that in to secure it, and then later on when we come to secure the plates, we can just cut ourselves an additional length of yarn. So there's 2 options. You need to decide what is best for you. At the moment, I'm going to leave a longer yarn tail on this side where I finished. However, I'm choosing not to leave a yarn tail at the start on this side, just because I know how much all those yarn ends get in the way. So I'm fine if they're staying on this side for now, but I don't want to be overwhelmed by them. And also I get to demonstrate for all of you, how to cut your yarn and sew the plates down that way. So yes, decide what's best for you, go ahead and do that. And once that's done, we then need to replicate this pattern for all of the remaining plates. So I will need to do this an additional 9 times. If you crocheted additional base pieces, you will have to crochet plates onto those as well. And also if you add more rows to your plate pattern, so say for example that you did 5, you will need to do 5 rows on all your subsequent individual base pieces as well. This is probably the most lengthy process in the entire pattern, so it might take us a little while. So I'm going to start with row 2. Remember to work into the very first stitch where you've already worked into with your color A yarn. You're just going to join with a slip stitch and then follow the pattern of 2 single crochet, 3 half double crochet, 14 double crochet, 3 more half double crochet, and finish with 2 single crochet. And done. So at this point, your Butcher Boy or Roly Poly should be looking a little bit like this. But we're going to set this aside for now and crochet the couple of individual pieces that we need for this pattern. The first of which is going to be a separate head plate piece. So we'll be using the exact same pattern that we've been repeating over and over and over and over and over again. But we're going to start off with a chain this time. So using your main color yarn, you'll want to create a slip knot and then chain 25. From here, we're going to, as I said, repeat the same pattern we've just been using. So that is going to be 2 single crochet, 3 half double crochet, 14 double crochet, 3 half double crochet, and 2 single crochet. And we're going to do that for rows 1, 2, and 3. Chaining 1 and turning your work obviously before starting rows 2 and 3. If you added additional rows to your plate pattern, do so here as well. So you want to match the length of this individual plate piece to the ones that you crocheted onto the body. So if you only crocheted 3 rows of the plates on your body, you're going to stop there like I'm going to. If you crocheted more, like I said before, you will just need to match the number of rows you did here as you did here. To finish off, we're going to leave a long yarn tail for sewing because we will be sewing most of this down to the front of the piece once we've crocheted the head. And speaking of the head, that's the piece that we're going to crochet next. So for that, you're going to need your color A yarn. And this time we're going to start off with a magic circle. And then in that magic circle, for round 1, we're going to do 1 single crochet, then a half double crochet, followed by 2 more single crochet, 1 and 2, another half double crochet, and then to finish the round, just 1 more single crochet. And then close you up. For round 2, we're going to start off with 1 increase. That is 2 single crochet in the same stitch. Then in the next stitch, we're going to do a half double crochet increase. And a half double crochet increase is just 2 half double crochet in the same stitch. So I've done 1 half double crochet in the next stitch. I'm going to yarn over, go back into that same stitch and do a second half double crochet. We're then going to do 2 increases in a row, single crochet increases this time. So there's my first single crochet increase. I'm going to do another single crochet increase in the next stitch. And then after that, we're going to do another half double crochet increase. So again, that's just 2 half double crochet in the same stitch. And then we're going to finish round 2 with another single crochet increase. Round 3 starts off with 1 single crochet. And I'm going to pop my stitch marker into you because I can hardly function without stitch markers. Well, my fellow brain fog enjoyers will know what I'm talking about. After that first single crochet, we're going to do 3 increases in a row, just single crochet increases. So there's my first increase. I'm going to increase in the next stitch as well, and then a 3rd increase in the stitch after that. We're going to follow this 3rd increase with 3 single crochet. 1, 2, and 3. And after this, we're going to do 3 more increases in a row. So increase, 2nd increase, and then 3rd increase. And at this point, you should have 2 stitches left in your round, and we're just going to single crochet into both of those. 1 and 2. Round 4 is just 2 single crochet, 1 increase repeated 6 times. And then round 5 is 3 single crochet and an increase repeated 6 times. Round 6 is 4 single crochet and an increase repeated 6 times. So at the end of row 6, we should have 36 stitches total in our round. And then the next 2 rounds, so rounds 7 and 8, are each going to be 36 single crochet. So we're just single crocheting our way around, no increases necessary. That's round 8 done. We are going to need to leave a yarn tail for sewing. Just measure it like so. And then we're also going to add in the safety eyes. So the first thing you want to do is position your head. Actually, the first thing I'm going to do is cut away this yarn tail from the magic circle because that will irritate me otherwise. And then we're going to position the head so that the increases from rounds 1, 2, and 3, they're stacked on the side. So that makes the piece more like ovular than round. So all my increases are sort of stacked here and here. Once that's in position, we're going to grab our 18mm safety eyes, and then we're going to pop them in between rounds 4 and 5, spaced like either side of the magic circle, the center here. So count out from round 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can put them directly in line with the magic circle, so in line with round 1 there. But I prefer to have them sitting up just a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to place mine sort of there. And then I'm going to pop the other one on this side. 1, 2, 5. And of course you can change this positioning if you want. It really comes down to personal preference in the end. So as you can see that my eyes aren't directly in line with the center of round 1 here. They're sitting just a little bit higher. So it's like the bottom of the eye is in line with the center here. That's how I prefer it. But again, you can change this if you want to. Once you're happy with the position of your eyes, go ahead and pop on the backs. That wasn't a good click. That was a bit disappointing. That was a little bit better. But now that that's done, the face or the head is complete. So we're going to set you aside and then crochet the final pieces for this pattern. And that is the antenna. Now, I'll be honest with you, I did design this pattern, but even so, I still go back and forth on whether I actually like the antenna or not. So I've decided to combat that. These are optional. So if you don't want to crochet the antenna, you don't like the way it looks, you can go ahead and skip this part. But if you would like the antenna, I'm going to provide the pattern for it anyway. So yeah, I've decided to make them optional. You can decide whether or not you want to add antenna to your butchie boy, your roly poly. If you would like to do so, the pattern is as follows. We're going to start off with a magic circle, and then in that magic circle, we're going to do 6 single crochet for row 1. For row 2, we're going to do 1 single crochet, 1 increase, repeated 3 times. Both rounds 3 and 4 are 9 single crochet each, or to make things a little bit easier, you can just do 18 single crochet in a row. Round 5 is 7 single crochet and a decrease. So we'll start with the 7 single crochet, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then we're going to do an invisible decrease. To crochet that, you'll want to go under the front loops of the next 2 stitches. So I'm going under the first front loop, then straight under the second front loop, yarn over, pull through both of those front loops, and then we're just going to yarn over and finish the stitch. So you pull through the final 2 loops on your hook. So that is the end of round 5. For round 6, we're just going to do 8 single crochet. Then round 7 is 6 single crochet and a decrease. Round 8 is 7 single crochet. Round 9 is 5 single crochet and a decrease. And then round 10, which is our final round, is just 6 single crochet. Leave yourself a yarn tail for sewing, and then you'll want to go on and crochet a second antenna. So at this point, we should have all the pieces that we're going to need to assemble our roly polies. We have the body piece, the individual head plate, the head, and the 2 antenna if you made those ones. We're going to start by securing the plates, and as I was talking about before, you can do this one of 2 ways. You can do this with the yarn tail you've left, or you can cut an additional length of yarn and use that to sew them down. I'm going to show you both ways here today, but we're going to start with the yarn that you've left dangling, because I have that, and B, it gets really annoying after a while, so I want to get it out of the way. For this part, you're going to need your needle, and we're going to start with the first plate, and you're just going to thread the yarn end through your needle. Easier said than done sometimes. And then what you want to do is come to the side of the plate, so the flat edge, and you're going to take that and line the first plate up with the second plate, but we're not going to line it up all the way, so they shouldn't be even. The first plate should stop about 3/4 of the way up the second plate. So I'll bring this up and give you as good a view as I can. So we're going to overlap them, but just that far. So you see how like 1/3 of the second plate is still visible? That's what we want to do. So you're going to hold that in position there, and you're going to sew the very end, again that flat edge, of the first plate to the second plate. Once more, we're only going about 2/3 of the way up. We're not going all the way. So we want our plates to be staggered. So I'm just going to sew all the way down. If you'd like it to be extra secure, you can sew all the way back up again. But now that I've finished, you can sort of see what I'm talking about. The first plate stops here. This portion of the second plate is still visible. Okay, I'm going to sew that down. Once that's secure, just weave in your yarn end through the backs of your stitches. And then we're just going to repeat that entire process down the row. So I'm going to take my second plate and I'm going to overlap that with the third plate, but once more, I'm only going to be going about 2/3 of the way up. So let me thread my needle first. So now I'm threading the second plate's end, or the yarn end, I should say. Take the flat end, overlap it. So we're only going about 2/3 of the way up, and you'll find that you will probably include a portion of the plate before it too. So I'm sewing plate 2 to plate 3, but just sort of a bit of plate 1 is going to get caught in the crossfire here. That doesn't matter so much. So we're going to line those up. We're just going to sew these down, and you know, don't need to do a whole bunch of sewing here. It's literally just 2, 3, maybe 4 stitches, not heaps. All right, so we just want to secure it a little bit. Just something like that is fine. And then once more, once you're done, weave in your end through the backs of the stitches. And then, like I said, we're just going to repeat this all the way down until all our plates are secure. So now that we've secured the first side, we're going to do the same on the second. And if you left yarn ends on the opposite side as well, you will need to secure them in the exact same manner that we've just done here. But if, like me, you didn't do that, we will need to cut some yarn and secure the plates that way. Now, you can cut smaller individual lengths of yarn, or you can cut one big length of yarn. I'm going with the one piece of yarn option because I find that a hell of a lot less fiddly. So once you have your piece of yarn, no matter what length you're using, you're going to insert that like somewhere down the bottom here. It doesn't really matter which stitch you work into, but we're just going to insert that down here, and we're going to pull that through until just a little bit of a tail remains. This tail here that you're leaving on the outside needs to be long enough that you can A, knot it, and B, weave it in. So you need a little bit of length, but not too much. So once you've worked into the bottom somewhere here, we're going to make sure that our yarn emerges at the base of the first plate. So right down the bottom here of that flat edge. And then from there, we're just going to line up the plates how we did originally. So I'm going to overlap the first one with the second one, but only go about 2/3 of the way up. and then I'm going to sew that in place. But this time I'll be working from the bottom to the top rather than the opposite direction I did last time. So I'm just going to do like a couple of stitches in there, and that's that secured. Once I've done that, I'm going to overlap the second and the third plate, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm just going to sew those together, working my way up. And then just repeat that all the way along. Then once you've made your final stitch in the last two plates, we're just going to weave this. My ferret is playing with her ball again. We're just going to weave this end in back through the stitches until we reach our starting point. So I'll insert my hook there. And you just want to keep it inside your work, going through all the stitches. Be careful not to pull too tight on this, otherwise you will like cinch up your work, and we don't want that to happen. Just continue weaving all the way along. And then emerge out of that original stitch, so the exact same one that you worked into. I'm going to put in a couple of knots here. 2 and then 3. And then, to make this easier, I'm going to make my yarn ends the same length. And then I'm going to thread them both through the needle. And then just push it through to the other side. So to the backs of the stitches. And then weave it through to secure it. There's an end I forgot to cut off before. Whoops. And then that's done. If you didn't use one long length of yarn to secure the plates, if instead you chose to use smaller individual pieces, the process is the same. You're just going to have to continually go back and like secure your yarn ends, and then, you know, repeat the process on the next plate, and so on and so forth. So it looks the same. You're just going to have to repeat it for shorter sections multiple times. That's why I prefer to use the long yarn length, because you only have to do that once. I mean, in hindsight, it's probably even easier than leaving yarn at the end of row 3, but I want to show you guys both versions anyway, so you can pick what works best for you. But now that we've secured the plates, we're going to attach the head. So we're going to grab that bit out, and the head we're just going to pop right on the front here. So you want to take your headpiece and then center it on plate 1. The bottom of the head will overlap with the belly slightly. All right, we're going to get there. And for this, you will want to grab out your pins just to secure it. Now, the head does require some stuffing, but because this is such a large open piece here, I find it so much easier to sew on about 3/4 of the head and then add the stuffing. So first of all, let's get you in place. So you want to make sure that's nice and centered. Once that's in position, we're going to start sewing it on. 2 things to watch out for. Number 1, as you're sewing, when you get to the base piece and plate part, so this section here, Make sure that you don't accidentally sew through that piece into the second one. We only want to attach the head to the first plate slash, you know, base piece here. We don't want to work through more than that. And number 2, stop about 3/4 of the way around, you know, roughly like here, and through that gap that we're going to leave is where we're going to add the stuffing. And also I might add a third thing to that. When you are sewing, be careful you don't stab yourself with pins. I've done it twice already, and I did it multiple times when I was doing that. So just be a little bit more careful than I apparently am. So now that we've made our way around the head for about 3/4, I got this much of a gap left. We're going to add the stuffing, and I put mine over there. I'm just going to pop that in. You don't really need to overstuff the head. In fact, I would recommend against that. Just a little bit. You just need just a little bit in there. You don't want the eyes bulging out too much. I'm just going to stick a little bit in there, because the thing is, if you overstuff the head, it's not going to fit very well into the tail piece. And then once that's done, we're just going to finish sewing and close up this gap. Alright, and then to finish off, just weave in your yarn end through the head to secure it. And snip off the excess. The next piece that we're going to attach is the individual head plate, and that we're going to wrap around the head. So we want the last row, row 3, to be at the back. And like we've done with the previous plates, we want this individual plate to overlap the first one here by about 2/3. So if you can line up, if you line up the sides and then pin those in place, so that's about 2/3 of the way up. Run it over the top of the head and pin it to the opposite side as well, like so. So it should end up looking a little bit like a hoodie. And if you need to, you can run the sides down and under the chin a little bit. You just want to check that everything's in the correct position. And then when it is, we're going to sew it on. But we're not sewing on the entire thing. We just need to sew down the side of the plate, so across here. We're going to sew up the side a little bit. If you want to, you can sew on the entire thing, but I like to sew on this portion under the eyes, then push my needle across the body and then sew down the opposite side. So that ends up looking like this. I just think that looks cuter than having the entire piece flat, but if you would prefer, you can sew the entire piece down. So here we're sort of sewing half across the first plate, and we're doing half across the belly here. Once you've sewn the bottom on, we're going to make our way up the side. So you just want to sew that to the head. Like I just mentioned, if you would like to, you can continue sewing all the way along here across the top until you get to the opposite side of the plate, and then just sew across the opposite side here. But I'm going to stop sewing at this point here. Again, that's just a personal preference. So to get to the opposite side, I'm going to insert my needle into the head and push it right across the head until I emerge from the point where I want to start sewing again. That might be a little bit too far in one go, so I'm just going to push my needle across twice. So I'm going to emerge right next to the eye here, pull that through, and then I'm just going to continue sewing this side down. And then when the sewing's done, we're just going to weave in our yarn ends to secure them. And you can do that through the head or through the backs of the stitches if you prefer. And then the final thing that we've got to do is attach the antenna. Well, if you made them, that is. Now, full disclosure, I did lose at Yarn Chicken today, so I had to crochet my antenna out of a different purple yarn. So if it looks slightly different than the main color I've been using, that is why. But we're going to pop those just right on the top of the head. So I've placed my antennas sort of inset from the eyes slightly. As you can see, they're just on the inside of each eye, and the front here is pinned sort of just between rows 1 and 2. But again, this positioning can, very much be changed. It really all comes down to personal preference in the end. So if you like them in a different position or you don't like them at all, that is entirely up to you. But once they are in position, just go ahead and sew them on and weave in the yarn ends like we've done for all the other pieces when you're finished. So there is your little Roly Poly, or Butchie boys as we call them down where I am. You can have him or her or them all rolled up. You can have them flat. You can have them sitting. The choices are endless. I hope you all enjoyed this one. Now, normally, if you're familiar with my non-pattern crochet videos, I do like to do a little segment called the hookup here at the end, but I've decided to not do that in pattern videos, so we're just going to skip that for now. I mean, my pattern videos are few and far between these days, so I don't think it's that big a deal. But anyway, thank you for watching. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Like the video if you enjoyed it, share it if you think it's worth sharing, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.